in the first week of my arrival to Brazil, wow, right, I was approached, and it was strange, and I found that very interesting, guys. Someone who was like in Nigeria, no one looked upon, no one was like, all of a sudden, you're approached I was approached by 3 young ladies in my class.
All your experience, your trajectory, academic trajectory, what do you think that Brazilian professors usually look out for? Let's say in a proposal, in a typical application, master's or PhD, with your experience, what do you think? Maybe 1 or 2 or 3 that you can share that this is what they look out for in a proposal, or in an application in general.
Basically,
you marry a Brazilian. Well, is it an easy thing to do to Brazilian?
Actually,
you are working in Brazil. What can you just say something briefly about the best way to navigate job opportunities in Brazil?
Yeah, in Brazil, I think you should be very...
Because I saw you introduce this to some of your colleagues, and I can see that all of them are white.
Yes.
How are you coping, knowing that you are the only black person
here.
Black Brazilian among them?
Exactly.
How is it?
So
you came to Brazil, going to like 11, 12, 13 years now.
Yes.
Have you witnessed any form of racism? Yeah. I even heard from someone that says Brazilian likes black because they are very strong. So just continue.
Yeah, we're gonna touch all those points. I will try to when I get to the end, if I've not answered some, we can touch them again. Okay.
All right, guys. So today I am with the soft-spoken Dr. Ayuba. He's a Nigerian. He's currently here in Brazil, and he's someone that did his first degree, his second degree, and his doctorate degree here in Brazil. He's also working in Brazil. Not even only that, he also married a Brazilian. So this is a Brazilian. He's no longer a Nigerian. I'm a Nigerian, and I'm here with a Brazilian. So it's a pleasure meeting you, my brother.
It's a pleasure. Yeah. I'm really honored to receive you here.
Yeah.
We are in São Luís currently. And as he introduced me that I'm a Brazilian, I still see myself as a Nigerian guy. Okay? I feel myself,
You're Brazilian.
They call me Brazilian. I speak Portuguese. I'm married to a Brazilian. I'm almost like kind of rooted here, but all the same, I feel Nigerian, guys.
Before we even proceed, I wanted to greet the viewers in Portuguese. I wanted to greet them in Portuguese,
Yeah, seja bem-vindo ao canal Knowledge Plug. Vocês têm que seguir esse canal, continuar apoiando o meu amigo aqui. Né? Vocês estão bem-vindos e fiquem sempre conectados, né? Comentam, compartilham com os amigos de vocês. Espero que a gente consiga contribuir alguma coisa de alguma forma, né? Para vocês aprenderem. Vocês estão bem-vindos.
You can see how Portuguese is just flowing smoothly, man. And see, if you are coming to Brazil, just have it at the back of your mind that you are going to learn the language. It might be difficult. Nothing is actually easy and nothing is difficult. I used to tell people, it depends on your determination, your commitment to it. So that is what is going to determine if it is difficult or if it is going to be easy. You can hear the way he's speaking. He's been there for a very long time anyways, but we also have some people that they've been here for a short period of time and their progress is very encouraging. So thank you so much, Dr. Ayuba. It's a pleasure. Dr. Ayuba has treated me to some nice food and we'll move around the city as well. So thank you so much. Now, we have had a conversation before. What would you even tell someone that is intending to come to Brazil to study?
Is first of all, try to study the country. We say it's a continental country. País continental, that's how it's termed in Portuguese. It's very big, it's vast, you have different cultures here. The extreme north is different from the extreme south. You would be surprised to find different realities, And that is the first thing. Climatically, they are diverse. Culturally, in food, they are a little bit more uniform, in terms of eating culture. But in general, you study the climatic conditions. There are hot regions, cold, mild regions, before you come. Yeah.
So thank you so much for that response. You must have been to different states since you have been in Brazil, right?
Yes.
Do you remember how many states you've been to in Brazil?
I've resided in Rio Grande do Sul. That is the extreme south. The last state before you go to, you cross over to Uruguay.
Okay.
So it's entirely different. And then I've also resided in São Paulo, which is central, even though it's called Sudeste, southeast, right? It's southeast, but it's also a kind of a strategic position where you can measure, or you can say, okay, this is somehow the central part of Brazil climatically, and let's say economic-wise.
And now you live. Your first degree was in Maranhão.
Was in Maranhão, yes. Okay. I studied chemical engineering for 5 years at the Universidade Federal de do Maranhão.
Okay.
Then I proceeded for my master's degree at Universidade Federal do Rio Grande, that is in Rio Grande do Sul.
All right.
And then I studied my doctoral degree at the Universidade de São Carlos in São Paulo.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, thank you so much. With all your experience, your trajectory, academic trajectory, what do you think that Brazilian professors usually look out for? Let's say in a proposal, in a typical application, master's or PhD. With your experience, what do you think? Maybe 1 or 2 or 3 that you can share that this is what they look out for in a proposal,
yes,
or in an application in general.
Basically, the research line is fundamental, but most importantly, the novelty. You have different lines, research lines.
Yeah.
But when you have a proposal that is very specific and brings a novelty, somehow it catches the attention of the professors.
Yeah.
They get curious. They want to know, who is this guy? They want to work with that student. Okay. Because from the way you propose, the way your writing skill is not general. Some people like writing a generic form. It's not good to make it general. Try to make it specific, and also look for things that are inexistent, even if they are existent. But there are some things that you can you can kind of improve. Okay, you can build upon.
Okay,
that is basically what they want. Okay.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. Recently, there was this news that was flying on the internet about people were scared, about what their fate holds if they come to Brazil, talking about job, talking about living and all of that. But you study here in Brazil, you are working in Brazil. Can you just say something briefly about the best way to navigate job opportunities in Brazil?
Yeah, in Brazil, I think you should be very aligned with their system. First of all, you should make friendship with the Brazilians if you want opportunities, because some opportunities kind of circulate within the specific community groups. They have groups, let's say we are friends, we share information. That's the same here. Okay, we have different groups, friends, study groups. There are groups of concurso, procesos seletivos. You can look for those people. Always ask questions. Then you're gonna get the vacancies through those groups. Yeah, or you can find maybe some platforms. You can register yourself in those platforms. I can't remember. I can't recall. But there are many platforms that kind of inform you when there is an opportunity, a job opportunity, specifically in your let's say field. So there you fill your information. They will keep sending you emails of vacancies. From there, you can apply, guys. You can apply. And one thing is, if you have the qualifications, there is nothing that can impede you from getting that vacancy, guys. Okay.
Wow.
So don't worry. Oh, you need someone to be there to help give you maybe a support or to kind of So you don't need that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ayuba. So guys, I actually came to meet Dr. Ayuba in his office. Do you want to talk a little bit? You may just as it be, because I saw you introduced me to some of your colleagues,
yes,
and I can see that all of them are white.
Yes.
How are you coping, knowing that you are the only black person here, black Brazilian among them?
Okay, exactly.
How is it?
So the process or the history of Brazil is very interesting. The blacks are still trying to find space within the black Brazilian community.
Okay,
but I would say, fortunately, the society has been progressing. Actually, in 2011, the situation used to be a little bit, difficult. But things got better.
Okay.
People are getting to understand the complexity behind the black, blackness. Being black, there is a complexity behind it. And people recognize the disadvantages that you may have, right? So they are a little bit careful when they see black people. They know the pain we go through. They know the difficulties we go through. So the relationship here in this office has been really great. Okay,
wow.
Because people in this office are really conscious. They are space conscious.
Yeah.
They're careful on how they relate with me. Okay, there isn't that how can I say atmosphere of, let's say, mistrust, or they see you as not capable of maybe executing a certain task, right?
Yeah.
So that has improved. Okay, it used to be more of that in the past, right? It was very difficult, I think, relating with some some people I used to study with, during
Back in the days when you were in school, right?
Yes.
And another beautiful thing is that there are so many policies in Brazil that supports equality, igualdade. Right?
Exactly.
So I think all of these things too are some of the things that comes to play when it comes to interacting with colleagues at work, right?
Yes, they contribute a lot. And you have also quota, which helps the black people specifically to get into some offices. Even though it's different in my case, okay, I got here based on competence, okay, guys. I'm a doctoral graduate, right? So I'm in an office that, yes, it's based on competence.
So talking about quota, I used to tell people,
Yes.
I just want to ask you because you're a Brazilian, talking about quota, I used to tell people that the quota, for example, when they bring out process so selectivo, the quota, some people from other African countries thinks this quota is for them. But I used to say that this quota is for black Brazilian. It's born out of a policy when they were trying to okay, let's pull ourselves together. We have part down brown, the white, there's quota for. So is it true that this quota is for the black people, Brazilian? Even though I know some African people, sometimes they apply for it and they get it. But some application you will see that they will ask you that you must get a document from, let's say, someone in your community, or you must do some identification, show your face and all of that. So originally, this quota for black, is it for... I want to say something about it.
Yeah, actually, the quota for black can be seen in different facets. Well, let's say perspectives, okay? We have classification of blacks. Okay, we have... in Brazil, we say negro. Negro. We have pardo and preto. Preto is someone that looks like me, basically. And pardo is someone who is in between. Let's say it's
brown.
Yeah, it's brown, okay? All of them are Negroes, right? That is a quota in the policy, in the Brazilian law. That is a group that can be represented. Then we have quilombolas. Quilombolas are blacks who are from specific communities. Right? When we are talking about quilombolas, that's when you need the documentation most of the times. Okay, you need a signature maybe from your community. But when you are a black and you declare yourself a black, there's what you call autodeclaração. So autodeclaração is basically recognizing your blackness. Yeah, you recognize that you are unfavored. There are some disadvantages attributed because you've seen some kind of treatment, okay, that usually is kind of directed to black people, right? Like police violence. Sometimes you go to interview, you're qualified, but somehow they show you a bias, you don't get that vacancy. So in that case, you say, okay, I am. If that selective process is giving you the chance to maybe, let's say, run for a vacancy, recognizing, those disadvantages, then you can say, okay, yes, I want that vacancy and I can run, for the vacancy. So as a black man from Nigeria, you need to understand, or from any part of Africa, or from any part of the world, okay? You need to understand that it's a policy, or it's a development recognized by the Brazilian society to give space. It's just a form of inclusion, right? So since they've gone through a lot in Brazil, the blacks,
before they get to this
level,
their voice has to be heard.
You can consider sometimes saying, okay, maybe I didn't go through such process. I didn't see such, violation or, such environment. You can decide to say, use your consciousness, and then say, okay, I'm not running for that. For instance, I personally don't run for quota. Okay, I know that I have the capacity to run with any Brazilian. They call it ampla concorrência. So why try to run for quota if I have the qualification
for the ampla concorrência?
Yes, I can run for the ampla concorrência. I can sit for an examination. I can pass that examination. You can leave that quota for someone who needs it. Okay, so that's my own point of view. But there are people who have different forms of thinking. In Nigeria, in Africa, we also have a situation where blacks have some limitations. We don't have very good structures that kind of gives us a qualitative form of education. So if you come to Brazil, you are competing with the Brazilians. Sometimes you find out that they are way forward. They are way ahead of you, right? So in that case, maybe you can try to, go through the quota. It's all, in my own point of view, you are allowed to do that, okay?
But originally, the quota...
It wasn't.
It was not it's for Brazilians.
It's for Brazilians.
Okay, just nowadays, or recently, some schools are kind of lenient. So they allow foreigners to
also
register under
the quota system.
So yeah, great. All right, so the next question. Now, since you came to Brazil, going to 11, 12, 13 years now,
yes.
Have you witnessed any form of racism?
Yes, I've witnessed different forms of racism, guys, okay? I've been kind of persecuted by a lecturer at the university. Some of you, by just Googling my name, you're going to see so many things. I remember there was a time a colleague told me, wow, I Googled your name and I saw so many things about, you battling a professor.
Wow.
He was kind of asking what had happened and I had to explain. So, yes, I basically, I had arrived in 2011 and it was very difficult then because I could speak little Portuguese then, okay? I could communicate, but I could hear them speaking, understand them, why they spoke to me. I could understand all the teachings, but I had that limitation not to talk.
Reproduce
of course. So it was difficult because the teacher saw the blackness in me.
And thought,
as you can see, I'm very black. I'm the darkest. This is the darkest tone, right? And I have all the characteristics of a black person, right? So some of them are not used to seeing blacks in such spaces.
Like they've not really had so much closeness. Maybe they just see on TV, like them having such closeness. It's still surprising,
At the university, yes, they kind of get surprised. They want to know who is that, okay? And some of them can contain such, let's say, emotion, and they attack. Okay, they try to make fun of you. They try to reduce you one way or the other. They try to try to put you aside, like show you that okay, you are not relevant, right? And it pains actually, right? So I went through that. It was very difficult, but
so how were you able to resolve it? Was it through the help of the school department? Was it easy to resolve?
I had the support of my colleagues.
Okay.
I think everyone that was around supported me. The department, the lecturers, the rest of the lecturers, my colleagues, everyone supported me. Okay, that was why I was like, okay, it was a very good situation to learn. And also not to generalize that, okay, it's a racist place, right? We have specific cases. And that was a specific teacher. That was a specific lecturer, right? So the department was involved. The university was involved. He went to, because there's what you call concurso.
Público.
Yes, he was a concursado. He was a permanent lecturer.
Okay.
In Brazil, as a permanent lecturer or someone who let's say, enters an office through concurso público cannot be removed like easily.
Okay.
You cannot remove that person easily. That person can misbehave, can
maybe discipline, maybe
but it's very difficult to remove that person. It's their constitution. So he was concursado, and everyone knew that he wasn't going to be like expelled, right? He could be suspended, whatever. Right? But we tried to try to look for solutions that could help at least to kind of help combat racism, right? So some laws were changed, some information were kind of they surfaced so that people could kind of let's say speak out in such kind of, let's say, situation. Don't just be silent. If a teacher is discriminating you, if your colleague or someone is discriminating you, basically that was it. He was suspended, and then later I think he was retired. He was almost at his retiring age. Of course, it wasn't my, how can I say, it wasn't my will to let's say take him to court, right? It wasn't but it was like he insisted, right? Because there were many occasions that he attacked me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he tried to fail me in subjects, in a subject. He was insulting me, my name, he was mispronouncing my name and trying to relate it to something else. So it was very complex. Right? Wow. It was very difficult.
In fact, just like you mentioned, there's so many things that have been put in place right now to combat racism and to make sure that people speak out when they are, because in my school there is a box. Although I don't know how effective this is, but there's a box where you can drop a complaint, and you have access to the Hector office where you can go to submit a complaint and all that. But it's part of the process. When you are, the truth is that there's no any country you get to that an element of racism will not be felt, especially if you are not part of that community originally. But the way it is being discussed in other regions in the European countries, that is not the way.
Different.
Yeah, it is in Brazil.
Yeah, Brazil tries to discuss. Yeah, it tries to educate.
They are even bringing some law just because they know that even their population is admixture.
Yes.
So you can't, because you are white, you can't say you are Brazilian than someone that is black Brazilian.
Yes.
So yeah, that's okay. But I have this interesting question, and I want you marry a Brazilian.
Yes.
I have like 3 or 4 questions, and we have some people, Africans from other countries, coming to the system. They are seeing Brazilian men and some men, they are seeing Brazilian women, beautiful women. And they're like, most of these people that are single are like, oh, I think that this is where I'm going to get married. The reason I know this because I've had interview with so many people, and I've heard people saying, "Oh, I just want to come to Brazil to get married. I want to come to Brazil to date. I want to come to Brazil to give birth." All kinds of people's intention.
Yes.
So talking about dating, marrying Brazilian. You married a Brazilian.
Yes.
So you may not. I'm not saying you should be explicit about your marriage, but is it an easy thing to? Is it an easy thing to date a Brazilian?
Yes, actually, I'm going to navigate. Okay, guys, I will try to touch, let's say, all the aspects of this question, the complexities behind relating with Brazilian, and the easy part. Okay, I come from a society where you need to be, let's say, you need to be self-sufficient. You need to be economically, let's say, buoyant, for you to establish a strong relationship. Yeah. So in Brazil, it's quite different. That's one of the advantages. Okay. In Nigeria, I wasn't approached by any lady. I must say, right? I was a quiet guy. It wasn't in my focus, to relate.
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for cutting you short. Let me just add one more question. So it's going to be part of what you are answering together.
Okay.
I even heard from someone
Yes.
that says Brazilian likes black because they're very strong. So just continue.
Yeah, we're gonna touch all those points also. I will try to when I get to the end, if I've not answered some, we can touch them again. Okay. So basically, what I thought was different was how people express themselves, most especially the ladies. They can approach you. Yes, they can look at Mike, Dr. Mike, and say, "Oh, I like Mike," and they will approach Mike. Call Mike, tell him,
Would they send me letter, SMS?
No, they can talk to you physically. They have some, how can I say, some body languages. They also have some terms. For instance, when someone asks you, "Are you married? Do you have a girlfriend?"
Yeah.
That's a form of interest.
The person has mission.
Yes.
Has a mission.
That person has interest, maybe. Okay, it's not 100%, but it's a form of manifestation, and that was how I found myself in the first week of my arrival to Brazil.
Wow.
Right, I was approached, and it was strange, and I found that very interesting, guys. Someone who was like in Nigeria, no one looked upon. No one was all of a sudden, you approached I was approached by 3 young ladies in my class. Guys, the first day I arrived, so that made me feel okay. Maybe this is my
maybe this is going to boost your self-confidence.
Of course,
I'm very natural like this.
You feel, you start feeling like, wow, there's something strange. You like this place, okay? Because it's a point. It's like let's say it's a +1 to you, right? In your country, you're not treated that way, but here you've been treated that way. So somehow I started seeing myself in Brazil, maybe getting married to someone here. Yeah. Even though people were talking about the complexities behind all those things, because we have 2 sides of the coin, okay? Yeah. We have the easy part, we have the most difficult part of it, right? So that was how I got, I got into relationship with my wife. We've been together for almost 10 years now. Okay, we've been together. We have a daughter. She's 8 years old, guys. And yes, we started relating. I'm gonna now try to graduate to the most difficult part of the relationship.
Yeah.
Guys, as an African in Brazil, you are seen as someone from a less privileged society, to be frank, guys. So that interferes in all the relationships. You see, both academically, right? Relationship-wise, with people you relate with, it's going to affect those places, right? They know that you are coming from a poor society. They think that, yes, you have little to offer, right? So the standard has to be Brazilian. That is where the difficulty comes. So sometimes you have your own culture, you see it this way, and then you're relating with someone who sees it that way.
Different way.
And also is not willing
to come to adapt your own way of meeting the
Of course, that is one of the difficulties, guys. So food, let's say how you communicate, how you show love, let's say affection, they kind of try to measure you with the same standard as the Brazilians, correct? So it's very difficult. It's very difficult, right? So in the beginning, it was like, okay, take it, I won't take it. You try to induce, you try to influence, but it's very difficult because you are in Brazil, and then it shows as if you are coming from, let's say, a society that didn't provide you with that. That is why you're here looking for something better.
Yeah, better.
Yeah, so you have to take everything. Okay, so that was one of the difficulties.
Now, talking about the first part, you talked about you can be approached.
Yes.
What's advice? Because you also say that part can be technical. So if you are approached, you mentioned that people have to be very careful. What advice would you give? Like, okay, if you are a black person, Africa, whatever, you get to Brazil and someone show you some signs or I'm interested in you, what would you advise the person?
Yeah, if a person shows you a sign of, let's say, admiration, or the person is interested in maybe having a relationship with you, try to know what kind of relationship.
Okay.
We laughed at the beginning of, let's say, a fantasy that, Brazilian women like African men, right? You should try to know if it's that species of admiration.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's that, then it has to be clear so that you don't just get into a relationship and then you hurt yourself.
Okay.
Because maybe at the end of the day, the desire has been satiated, and then you want to go further with that relationship, and then you see that it's not going further. She's trying to distance herself from you, right? So you will feel hurt, right? So you should try to understand if it's a relationship of, let's say, let's construct something together, or it's just a momentaneous relationship, pleasure, right? You should understand that. That's the first thing. And you should also be careful, because sometimes you can be lured into, loving that situation. For instance, I saw an ease. Yeah? It was very easy for me to find someone, but there is a difficulty behind it, like relating and
blending to the culture.
Blending, cultural differences. That is very remarkable, guys. It took me a long time to start coming in consensus with my wife, trying
to understand the culture she's coming from, the mindsets, and right?
I understood her culture, her mindset. I was able to assimilate her culture, right? But it was very resistant on our own part, right? It was very difficult. So it took a long time. She had to see proofs, right? From time to time, we would meet someone, and that person would emit an information, and that influenced the way she saw me. Maybe the person's going to ask, okay, I heard that in your community, you guys do this, right? But sometimes that person that you are relating with wouldn't allow you to provide that information. Or even if you do, that person might not accept at that instant. Let's say, okay, in my society, woman does this. In my society, man does this,
okay,
right? So in such situation, you might find yourself in a very difficult situation, because in Brazil, we have a lot of rights.
Okay.
It goes from, let's say,
rights to
racial.
Okay.
Like the blacks.
Okay.
They have rights to this. The women, the homosexuals, everyone has space.
Children.
The children, they have space. All the vulnerable groups, or groups that have somehow been kind of marginalized in the society, they have space, right? So some of them know that they have space, and they're not willing to negotiate that space. They're not willing to okay, you have this, maybe I should consider, right? So they're kind of rigid. They don't want to adjust, right? So it becomes very difficult.
And I think, thank you so much, Dr. Ayuba. If I ask this question, if you are yet to subscribe to Dr. Ayuba's channel, this is the right time, because all the information you need about thriving and living well in Brazil, especially as a student, you will get it from his channel. You mentioned one thing, this could be the second to the last questions anyway, about everybody has space. And I would like to say, right, if you're coming from different climate, like you're coming from a different country, where all these different social, I don't know how to put it now, categories. If you get to Brazil, you may be surprised, but don't take that as, you now begin to, it could be a cultural shock,
of course.
But be careful to express it in such a way that it will create or it will cause something that you will not try to manage the shock as you are seeing there. For example, if you are seeing two people of same gender having or necessary, on the street, try to manage your shock. It is not your society. I know you are coming with different value, different training, you are from different background entirely. But here in Brazil, just like Dr. Ayuba said, each of these categories of people, they have their space, and everyone is trying to maintain. Even me as a black person, I will try to maintain my space. Nobody can just say, I will try to tell the person, there's equality in this country. So that is what happened. So yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Ayuba. I think you really talk, you really say so many things that are valuable. And if you, viewers at home, if you will take this, I'm very sure that it will really help you, in integrating into the society.
Yes.
In Brazil. Do you have one or two things to say?
Talking about the space for everyone.
Yeah.
We usually, let's say we come from societies that somehow are a little bit homogeneous, because I realized that I was in a very democratic society when I came to Brazil in 2011. I come from where so many things are prohibited. Women have lesser voice, to be frank, okay? And some specific things are kind of not normal, right? Because they belong to, those specific things are practiced by specific groups of people. Yes, it's a culture, it's a tradition, it's let's say Christianity being frowned upon by Islam, the African traditional religion being, how can I say, frowned upon by Islam. And yes, but in Brazil, they're trying to create a space where everyone has his own share. So you can be practicing your own religion without interfering with another person's religion. That was why my friend here was saying, you could see two people of the same gender relating, right? You don't need to interfere. You don't need to, how can I say, frown at that, because it's a society that has evolved to such level. They had once in a lifetime been in the situation in which we are at the moment. We frown upon them. We design laws, to prohibit some certain acts. They've been there before, but they saw that it doesn't help the society to evolve, and they put those things aside. So what I'm saying is that you can keep your value; it will be respected. Yes, if you come to Brazil, your values are respected, your space is respected. So you should also try to respect other people's spaces. You shouldn't be scared to relate with people who are different, who practice different things. Just try to focus on your own, okay? So by so doing, you will not find yourself in trouble, because those stuff are laws. Some of them are laws, okay? You cannot discriminate against people who are of the same